And welcome back to the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show, a podcast brought to you by the Livingston Parish News. My name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news, and it's 2023. Happy New Year to everybody. And so we're kicking off a new season of the show. This time it's 2023, as mentioned. Sitting here with this gentleman here, this is Around Livingston. It's where we talk about what's going on around Livingston. I'm going to let him introduce himself real quick, the 2023 version of him. Morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. This is David Gray, news writer with the Livingston Parish News.
And plenty to talk about today because we took the week off last week, that weird week in between, especially with holidays being on a Sunday, puts us on a bit of a grind the beginning of the next year or beginning of the next week. So we took last week off. So now we're kicking off the new year. Going to talk about a few things from last week and then cover some of our top 10 stories. Where we landed, some of the honorable mentions and things like that. But first and foremost, some interesting things going on at the school board level with regard to CRT. Of course, that's critical race theory. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was at the last meeting of 2022 for the school board, and it was a topic that that's been a controversial topic, kind of one of those buzzwords, CRT, and but it didn't really draw a conversation other than the school board member at the time, Dr. Devin Gregoire, who put that item on the agenda. He read the resolution declaring the district's stance against teaching CRT, and it's one of I believe this is the second parish in the area or school board in the area that passed this sort of resolution. I know St. Tammany did it earlier this year. I'm unaware if any other ones did, but yeah, this was just this has been a topic that a lot of parents voice concerns about. CRT is like I said, one of those buzzwords that draws strong opinions from both sides of the political aisle. You have people who say that are in support of it, saying that high schoolers or kids in school should be taught some of the country's history with racial divides and that sort of thing. And then there are people who are opponents of it, saying that it's one, it's a theory that's in the title, and two, that it sort of pits people of different races against each other. So, but like I said, there wasn't really much of a discussion on it other than the school board member reading it. And Livingston Parish, historically pretty conservative, so there wouldn't be that much of you wouldn't expect there to be that much of a pushback from it anyway. But yeah, so that was passed at the last meeting. So it forbids teachers or school employees from teaching anything related to CRT in their classrooms, or talking about any sort of beliefs along that line with their students. So yeah, that's basically kind of what it does. Just prevents that sort of discussions from going on in the classroom.
So going to be interesting to see. Without comment, it looks like that's a done deal.
Yeah.
And so things are that was adopted, and the school board is moving on. And some interesting news, and we're going to try to get this out today before noon. The Rose Bowl is tonight. Actually, I think it's this afternoon, because there is a Monday Night Football game on. Joe Burrow will be playing the Bills, Josh Allen and the Bills. So Anyway, getting back to the Rose Bowl, Louisiana kind of jumped on the scene a few years ago by participating in the Rose Bowl parade and showing out as we do. But this year, there's going to be a sort of an added bonus, especially for local Livingston Parish residents, and that is, I'm going to let you talk about it. There's a native from Denham Springs who's going to get to participate.
Yeah, this is actually the second straight year that the state joined this parade last year. Over the last couple years, they joined two of the biggest parades in the country. You got the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, and then the Rose Parade. And so this is the second straight year Louisiana's been in it, and the second straight year that there would be Livingston Parish native in it. This year, it's KT Scannell. She's the reigning Miss Louisiana USA, crown that she won earlier this year, and she competed for the Miss USA title. She will be riding on the float with, I think, about 20 other queens from across the state. And yeah, so like I said, this is the second straight year that Livingston Parish native has been in it. Last year, Lane Hardy actually performed during the Rose Parade, and Louisiana actually won a float or excuse me, won an award for their design. Best, I think it was best floral design. I can't remember the exact award that it was for, but they won an award for that. So yeah, she might have already been on there right now. The rose parade was supposed to go from 8 to noon on Monday, January 2nd. So we're recording, it's almost 10:30, so I got about an hour and a half left of that. So yeah, I'm not sure if she's been in it yet, but yeah, I mean, I talked to her on the phone after I got that press release from the Lieutenant Governor's office. She was very excited. Katie Scannell has been honored by the Denham Springs Council, the Livingston Parish Council. She's been at a lot of events over the last year. Since she won Miss Louisiana USA, and she's really been out there and just a good representative for Livingston Parish and Denham Springs.
So, and hope she had a fun time this morning. As you mentioned, the parade itself, I should have known, was from 8 to 12, so that she has probably already come and gone. Hope she had some fun, and anyone else from Louisiana that got to go over there and be on that float had fun with that. I believe that, I forget who's playing in the game. It's Penn State and Utah. There it is.
I've been off my college football game. I have no idea who's in what bowl game.
It just struck me. It's Penn State and Utah, and of course LSU and Purdue kicking off at 11 a.m. There's some other football games as well today. I don't remember who plays. At any rate, getting into the last thing we need to cover before we talk about the top 10 is the parish council has an interesting situation on their hands. There is and I'm using air quotes here, a legal herbal supplement, and it's called Kratom. That has drawn concern from citizens, that has been passed on to the parish council. I believe they're going to be looking into it in 2023, according to Councilman Tracy Girlinghouse. Tell us a little bit about how this all came together.
Yeah, this was, from what Mr. Girlinghouse said, this was sort of at the request of the sheriff's office. They've been noticing there have been some incidents where kratom has been present in certain drug situations. Kratom, like you said, it's a herbal supplement. It's not illegal in Louisiana, except for two parishes, Ascension and Rapides, I believe is the other parish, where it is illegal to buy and sell, or excuse me, sell and possess. It's illegal in 6 states. The closest two would be Arkansas and Alabama. But this is something that's kind of been getting on the radar of the FDA and DEA over the last year. It's from what Sheriff Jason Ard said in a message to me. It's sort of used as an enhancer of other drugs, but the problem is it's legal. It can be bought, in Livingston Parish. It can be bought. Smoke shops, gas stations, that sort of thing have them. So the sheriff's office went to the council to sort of see if they could, possibly pass an ordinance. Not really sure what that ordinance is going to cover, whether it would be illegal to sell it or illegal to possess it or both. But the council was supposed to tackle this at the last meeting, but Tracy Gardenhouse said that he wanted a little bit more time to research it, because they were supposed to actually talk about it during the ordinance meeting, but they had a lot of other stuff that they got to, and the ordinance meeting was actually longer than the actual council meeting, so they didn't really have time to get to it. But he did say that they're in early 2023 they should have an ordinance, or they should have enough information to determine whether or not they want to go through with the ordinance for kratom. So that'll be kind of one of the bigger topics that were tackled early on this year.
Very interesting. All that sort of that legal supplement area is such a gray. Well, it's an area, but it's also a gray area. So going to be interesting to see where the council goes with that. With all that being said, we're going to go over our top 10 for 2022 in the news and lifestyle sections. But first and foremost, we're going to discuss our honorable mentions. First one's going to be he's what Livingston Parish is all about. Former Sheriff Willie Graves was honored by the Livingston Economic Development Council's top honor, which is the Easterly Award. Man, you take
tongue twisters.
Yeah, you take 1 week off. The next one is Help Us. Livingston Parish Council approves 60-day moratorium on new development. That story, as well as two other stories, did not make the top 10 because there was eventually a development from it.
Yeah.
So we'll discuss that in a minute. Livingston Parish School Board creates Educational Facilities Improvement District. You may hear heard of it as an EFID, to explore funding for higher salaries. We don't want this. Tensions rise as residents, officials voice opposition to proposed carbon capture hubs from Oxy Air Products. We are moving forward. Superintendent discusses a long 2-year period amid COVID-19 pandemic in the school board meeting. And last, but certainly not least, Tiki Tubing to remain closed for 2022, and as we later find out, probably in perpetuity unless somebody else buys it
Yeah.
in wake of legal issues. So those were our honorable mentions. Now we're going to discuss our top 10 in order, and I'll let you run with that.
Yeah, I mean, this is we'll just give a quick breakdown, because these are some of these stories were reported on, multiple times. It wasn't just a one-off story. The biggest ones I would say, the and you kind of mentioned it, the 60-day moratorium that really ties into what we put as the top story of this year when the council earlier this year passed a series of ordinances tightening development regulations. That was a big one that came towards the end of the 60-day moratorium. Another one you kind of mentioned, the EFID board, the 1 cent sales tax that's going to be on the ballot this year, in March 2023. I guess I don't have to say 2023 anymore because we are now in that. But
Right.
but that's going to be, we've written a few stories on the EFID board, and then them discussing the tax and them actually proposing to put it on the ballot, and then the school board actually going through with that. So that's something that was one of the most impactful stories this year, and it's going to be a story that we'll be writing on from now and for the next 2.5 months or almost 3 months essentially until that's done. Two stories that were really good, that were feel good stories, kind of this similar to each other. Was Denham Springs Elementary and and the Southside schools. These were the three most affected schools during the 2016 flood, and both schools reopened this year. Denham Springs Elementary opened in January, and the two Southside schools, which now share one campus on Pete's Highway, they reopened at the beginning of the school year in August. So those are kind of two feel good stories, just and that kind of officially wrapped up the school district's recovery from the flood. Those were the last three schools that had to be rebuilt, and next door here, it's weird seeing those T buildings gone because when I got hired here, I mean they've been there since I started working here. So for me, it was really weird not seeing them there because I just always they had always been there since I've been here. But so those were two good feel good stories, and then another one was the book content item that was discussed by the Livingston Parish Library's Board of Control. The Board of Control meetings for the library, were probably mostly quiet until this year whenever one of the board members who is now a council member, Aaron Sandifer, put on there to discuss book content. That led to, uh, you know, 2 or 3 meetings that were packed where people, speaking on both sides of the issue. Some didn't want the library board to censor books, while others were saying that it wasn't censoring so much as just making sure that books of a sexual nature weren't readily available for children to get their hands on. It led to a lawsuit between a librarian and two others who she claimed were harassing her and bullying her online. We have, that could lead to other litigation. We're still waiting on that. So, and then another story, of course, was probably the biggest one this year. I think was probably the Nick Touye passing. For those who don't remember, Nick Touye from Livingston Parish was a East Baton Rouge Sheriff's deputy, and he was one of the officers that was shot when a gunman attacked police in 2016 during a really terrible summer for the Baton Rouge area. You had the Alton Sterling killing before that, then the police officers, and then in Livingston Parish you had the flood. So I mean, just just a terrible summer that year. And Nick Touye, who was shot multiple times and outlasted any of the earliest projections, finally succumbed to those injuries. 6 years later, however long it was, almost 6 years later. So to me, I think that was probably for me the most impactful story this year, just seeing all the tributes that came out, from everybody, not just in Louisiana but outside, and some international, tributes. And then kind of tying into that with the law enforcement, I guess. The school system sheriff's office launched a partnership that increased law and patrols on campus. This sort of came in the wake of another school shooting in Texas earlier this year. So I mean, that was something that families were really concerned about, and so the sheriff's office agreed to put some more. They came up with a program to get more, not only deputies but police officers from all the departments in Livingston Parish to you know go to these campuses and sort of patrol the perimeters and that sort of thing. And then a new interactive map from the Amite River Basin Commission that shows the devastation of the flood. You can kind of click on it. We talked about that. That was kind of recent, but it just gives people more of a clear view of the 2016 flood and just how bad it was for all the areas, but especially Livingston Parish. So
Sure.
yeah, that's a quick rundown.
There you go. So that was the top 10. As for the news hole,
Yeah.
as David and I kind of discussed it. So be looking for that in this Thursday's paper, and of course it'll run online this week as well. So the other hat you wear is the lifestyle editor. So let's jump over to that and discuss your top 10 moments in the lifestyle pages.
Yeah, we'll try to be a little quicker. But I would say the two most memorable stories for me was one was Raylan Johnson, the Walker native who was on So You Think You Could Dance. She was one of the top. She made it to near the end, so that was one of the most memorable stories for me. And then also there was a few others. The Hungarian Harvest dance was brought back after COVID and Hurricane Ida canceled it the previous 2 years, and this is an event that dates back more than 100 years in Livingston Parish. So it was really important for that for the Hungarian community to bring that back. Albany Upper and Elementary. Or excuse me, Albany Upper and Lower Elementary schools getting a new cafeteria. That's something that community has been sorely needing for a long time, and they actually, broke ground on that late last year, and I saw some pictures of demolition actually. So that project is up and running. That's funded through a Hassett sales tax that was passed in the Albany district last year. But they're going to get a new cafeteria, new classrooms, just some much needed improvements for that campus. That's one of the oldest campuses in Livingston Parish. The Denham community celebrating the opening of Yellow Jacket Stadium. That was a big moment earlier this year. The residents of Denham Springs, they passed a millage renewal. That millage was initially paying for the new Jubilee Park schools, but after those were paid off, they decided to rededicate those funds to the construction of new athletic facilities for Denham Springs High, and the new stadium opened this year for a playoff game actually, and that was just one of the most fun sporting environments I've ever been at. Just seeing the happiness of everybody. I mean, Denham hadn't had any major athletic facility improvements since the 50s or 60s. I can't remember how long, but decades. And it was now they have a pristine high school football stadium there, and especially for a playoff game. And this year, Denham, went to the what was quarter semis? I can't remember exactly which
Quarters.
Quarters, yeah. And I mean, so it was just not only did you have a great team to cheer on, but then at the end of the year, they got to, after having to play all of their games on the road this year, which I mean, it's not easy. That's a hard thing to do. Being forced to not really have a home for a whole year. Even though Walker, Live Oak, they stepped up and helped out, but I mean, still, it makes it difficult for when you're, having to travel for every one of your games and not having a true home field advantage. But they got one this year now, and they'll have one now for many years to come with that new stadium. And then Christmas Crusade, we kind of actually, that's something we didn't talk about. That ran in last week's paper. Kind of did a more of a behind the scenes with some of the people who make the Christmas Crusade go for the sheriff's office. Erica Ard, we know she's kind of Mrs. Claus, if you will, but she has some help from some very dedicated people who have been working on this program now, for years. So that was one of the top ones. And then the Livingston Parish Tourism, their new marketing campaign, Make a Fun Run, they're really pushing that right now. You can see that on, a lot of things going on in the parish. They're, sort of taking that little slogan and running with it. So those are kind of the rundown of the top stories from this year. I don't know if I did exactly 10 of them, but that's just kind of a breakdown of them.
Sure. So we appreciate your time today, sir. That was covering stuff from last week and then moving forward with a little stuff, the top 10 for news and lifestyle for this week. So if you'll introduce yourself.
Hey, this is David Gray, news writer with Livingston Parish News.
My name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. Appreciate you guys out there for joining us for the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show. Please remember the news is on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. We are once a week in print on Thursdays. It's $7 a month to get that in your mailbox. We're also online, www.livingstonparishnews.com. We appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you next time.